Okay, so let's talk about the consumer lab that we'll be doing. The first thing that you're going to need to do, if you haven't done so already, is make sure that you download an IDE. We've been doing BlueJ in class, nice and simple. You know it. I recommend that you stick with that. So if you go to bluej.org, you can choose the operating system that you got, Mac or Linux or Windows, whatever. Uh, and so you can download that and install it, and it will wrap up absolutely everything that you need, including um, the JRE and the JDK that comes from Oracle. So they do, used to be that you had to go out separately for those different files for the actual Java language. BlueJay's wrapped that up in one big package, knows where to put it, and so it all gets installed nice and easy, and then you're ready to go. So make sure that you've installed that if you haven't done so already. The next thing to do is to get the documents for that the College Board is providing. And on our schedule, the second link here is for that. So there's a zip file that is for the specific files. Here's what's in there. A couple of these files are for activities. I think it's activities 3 for these guys. We're going to be using a CSV file, basically a database full of words, and then they give us some starter code in review.java. So the first thing you have to do is download all of those guys, and then I've done this a few times. So when you have it, then what you're going to do is right click and extract. Um, so there it is. And those 4 files are all there nice and tidy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my desktop just to make it a little easier to find things. Now, BlueJ knows has a way of doing things, and it likes to control a little bit about the Java files and the organization of those files. And so when you open up BlueJ, you can't just double click on, say, the review.java file. You have to tell BlueJ that this is an actual file and project and where those files are. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start BlueJ, and we'll see what pops up. Probably nothing. Um, And what I now need to do is I need to navigate to that file, that folder, that directory that has all of the files in it that I want to be able to use. So I'm going to open, instead of just opening the project, that seems like it makes the most sense. This is a non-BlueJ, so it was not written in BlueJ, most likely. Um, and so we need to find out where and what this thing is. So it's the consumer lab. The one there's because I downloaded it multiple times. That is the file that I want to open. And when I click on select folder, what is going to pop up is, oh, there is review. I should be able to compile it because it's coming from the College Board, and it does in fact compile. So that's all good. If I take a look at what is inside this folder, um, here's review.java. That is the main. That's what the raw source code that we'll be having. The C text and .class file is what happens once we compile. I mentioned these 2 other files previously. Here is um, a spreadsheet of all these words. So what the College Board wants us to do for this particular project is to be able to take a whole bunch of, well, to take a review of something, a restaurant, a sports product, a movie, music review, any kind of review that you like, and be able to assess, is that a positive or is it a negative review? So they went out and they got this big list of stuff, and we're going to go through a review and we'll calculate Is that a positive word or a negative word? These words, the evaluation came from somebody else. It did not come from the College Board. So don't, it's not a group of sitting around a table in New York that said, let's give that a 1.5. This was something that was done elsewhere. So the other thing that I have given you on the weekly assignments, in addition to that, is just my step-by-step that I think will help you go through this. Not a lot of screenshots, but hopefully things that are kind of clear, and some questions that I'd like you to answer as you're going through that experience. If you want the actual College Board guidelines, that's there as a PDF. You might find that helpful. I'm not saying it's not, but anyway. So this is the document that I wrote. And the first couple steps are really looking at this review.class .java file and what's there. So they're using this thing called Natural Language Processing Project from Stanford. It's got that database has 6,000 plus words on it, and they have evaluated whether the word little is a positive word or a negative word. And they've put some again, a numerical value on that. So if we take a look at that, here's what they came up with. I am slightly curious to hear what the reading is. Let me see if I can X out of these things. And so here's the actual document. This is a comma separated value, a CSV file. It doesn't have to be open in Excel, but a spreadsheet will be able to interpret it. Again, it's kind of interesting. So the 1960s is a plus 0.9. Anything that's a positive number has a positive feel to it. Things that have a negative value are going to be seen as a negative. So I'm not sure exactly why the 1960s are positive and the 1970s are not, and the 1980s are twice as bad as the 1970s. Somebody had a reason why for all these different evaluations. You can go through here and see all the words that they've got, and there's a lot of them, 6,200 and some odd. So for every word that is there, it's going to have a particular rating. So the 1970s had a rating of 0.9, and annoyed has a value of negative 1.07. All right, so that's really bad. If you're annoyed, that's clearly a negative connotation. I'm not sure what the largest value is. I haven't gone through this super extensively, but there's a lot. Annoyed would be clearly a poor word. So that's what this guy is going to do. And one thing that happens in programming is that we can write apps to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. That's a common project in a computer science class. But that's really kind of a dumb reason to use a computer, right? Going through 6,000 words and finding out what the rating is for each of those words, that is going to take a computer to calculate that, to go through all the words that might be in a particular review and then come up with, oh, this is a 4-star, 5-star, and a 1-star, 0-star rating. That's kind of what you would take a computer in order to do that. That'd be very difficult to do by hand, in other words. So that's what that table is, and it's now up to us to start writing that code. If we take a look at what is on, there we go. Ooh, that's a little too big. Okay, so this is the API of the Java class, the review.java. And so there are some methods that are in here that we're going to definitely use, and there's some that are doing the heavy lifting that we'll call, but we probably won't really look at it too closely. So one of the things that we need to do is to be able to write, to have a text file of a review, and then convert that into a string. So getting that to happen and being able to read from a file is a little clunky, and it's not super easy. It's definitely beyond the scope of the AP subset. So they've given that to us, and that is this method down here, text to string. So that takes a file name of whatever the text file is, so words.txt, whatever that might be, and it's going to open up that file, go through the whole thing, take all of the contents of that text file and dump them into one big fat string variable, and we're off to the races. There are other things that they do, such as get punctuation or remove the punctuation. I'll talk a little bit about why that's necessary there, but there's not a super lot to that, to this class, but more than it's a lot better that they gave us that than us starting with just a blank slate. So a couple things to keep in mind. So one of them is sentiment value. This is a method that is going to go to that table, find a given word, and then return what the double is for that's associated with that word. All right, so that's a very key method. And again, the parameter is the word that we're looking up. And again, it's going to return a double because all of those values are have a are a percentage, basically, point something. The other thing to know is, if a word is not on that list, so all the words that are on the list are either going to return a positive or a negative value. And if a word is just right down the middle, the word the, is that positive or negative? Well, it's neither, really. So if it is not on that list, this method is going to return 0. So we know that if the value is not equal to 0, it's got some kind of a rating of positive or negative. If it's not on the list, it's 0, and it's therefore deemed neutral. I talked a little bit about the text to string. That's a nice method that is going to be able to convert that into a big fat string. And then the other thing that we're going to need to do is remove punctuation. We had a similar situation on the Magpie lab where tell me more about your mother. If there was a period at the end of that sentence and we extracted mother and the period, it would not see that as tell me more about your family. So the remove punctuation is going to, we wrote that a method that helped us extract just the word and ignore everything else. The remove punctuation does the same thing. They've written that for us. Okay, so the first thing to do is to write a main method and to then go through and identify some words and see, is this working? How is this working? Does it work successfully? Does it work correctly? And to answer some questions. So some of these are coming from the College Board. They're from the document that I shared with you, and some of them are questions that I have. So what is the signature? What's the heading for this particular class? Why does it have a parameter? What's the return type? And then to try some stuff out. So here are 3 words that I'd like you to test out. What is returned by that? Come up with some others that are also on the list. So look at the list and see what's there, and then find out what's returned, and then do something that's not on the list, and it should come back 0. So you can pause the video now, and I will show you right now how to actually do that. So if you want to try it on your own, you're just going to create a main. The name of the method is up here. It's sentiment val is the one that we're looking for, and then pass those different words. All right, so you can pause it, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so there is no main in here, so we can open up this this class review. There it is, and there's a lot of things that, again, a bunch of stuff that they're importing. Some things we know, so there's a scanner. They're not prompting users to type anything. That's the scanners used to read that text file. In order to read the file, we're going to need a file. So there's an input-output. So we've been talking about or using java.util a lot and the things that are in that. This is coming from a different package. There's a hash map. Hashes would be the class after this one, in which hashes are described. Array list, we've definitely done that. There's a random class. We've always used math.random. That is on the AP subset, and the random class is not. A little curious why they chose to go that route. And then everything else from the input-output stream, because they're doing that. And so if you take a look, here's a hash map. Here's an array list of strings of the positive and the negative negative values. And so these are the first few classes, and this is really reading from those files. And this is what happens when, so this try catch, just more information than you need perhaps. This is a way of testing to see, can I open a particular file? Because it's so easy to screw the name up and the program won't work. So I'm going to try this, and if it works, great. Do this, and if it's not, if there's an exception that's called, then I'm going to output, hey, the problem was I can't find the right file. Then maybe there's an out of bounds exception, or maybe it's an input output exception that's happening. You can even test to find out what the exception is to communicate to the user. Here's why it crashed at runtime. This is the text is string. You can take a look at that, similar a try catch. Anytime that it's reading from a value, it's going to be doing that. And again, we're going to put sentiment val is going to get forced to be lowercase. There's a sentiment function as well. Here's I'm going to be getting the punctuation at a particular point, removing the punctuation. That's going to be important for our case. And so here is a they're using terms to be able to do that, going through chars outside of the subset of the AP exam. And that's the end of the class, right? So now I'm at the very bottom. There is no main, right? So that's the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a public static void main in this particular class. We could create a separate one that would be a driver. That would work too, I guess. We'll keep it nice and tidy, everything inside this. So public static void main, void, right? And so what I'm going to do is I want to get a value. I could do this all in one line. I'm going to split it into two. And I'm going to be testing different words and seeing what is the value of that word. What was the rating that this group from Stanford came up with? So I'm going to store that, and it comes back as a double. So I'm going to create a double, call it answer. And I'm now going to call that sentiment val, wherever it went. Random adjective, it's up here somewhere. There it is, sentiment val. All right, so it's going to return go to that that method and to the table, be able to parse through that and find out whether or not it's positive or negative. So I'm in the review class, and because all of these methods are static, these are all class. I'm not creating a new review object. I'm calling them right from the class. Do you have to write review dot? No, you don't. The standard is that all methods, all instance variables have an identifier. So I'm going to put the identifier as a class name. That's how you call static methods. So review.sentiment al, and I want to be able to get what are these words. And so the words that I'd like you to look for are awesome, rotten, and super. So let's start with awesome. So I'm going to pass awesome, and what's going to come back is the rating for that. Now I want to output that. And so I'll just system out, print line, make it really pretty. I don't know if it's going to like that. I might need a. I've gotten too fancy for my own good. Close quote plus answer. Right, so I'm going to have a simple sentence. It's going to actually read. I could just output answer. That would have been faster. But what the heck, I'm bored as heck over here. And I think we're done, right? So we're going to get that. We're going to store this in a variable called answer. I'm going to output that and see what that is. Hopefully we compile. That's good. And let's now try to run it. And it's 92. Let's find out. Is that right? So on the desktop. Maybe I shouldn't keep closing these things. And I got to scroll way the heck down there to get find awesome. Awesome. Oh, hey, what do you know? It is. It's 92. So that looked good. And so you can fill that in on your little chart there. The next task is to do rotten. Well, that sounds like it's going to be a negative word as well. So I can go back to my main here and change awesome to rotten. And what do we get then? Yep, a lot worse than awesome. So negative 1.78. That makes sense. All right, so you can fill that in. You can try it again for super. The next step is to choose some other words that are on the list, test to make sure that you're doing this all correctly, and then try a word that's not on the list. All right, so a word that's not on the list is you'd be surprised what is on the list. I don't know. 3x's I'm pretty sure is not on the list. 4x is really not. And it's not there, comes back 0. All right, so if it is there, it means that The group has decided that there is a rating for that, and if it is not there, then it means that it's neutral. All right, so if it has no impact, then it's not going to have that rating. So you can figure out a way of fooling it and writing X really terrible, and it wouldn't show up. All right, so I'm going to pause this so I don't have to upload a crap ton, and we'll go on to the second activity right after this.